Hey there, all you marvelous musical mavens. Welcome back to Broadway by Ghostlight. I'm Mark Bonanni, and this is episode 49 of Broadway Jeopardy. Oh man, so close to that 1 year mark. If you love musical theater, Broadway trivia, or tall bearded guys with basic video editing skills, hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. I've got 26 all-new clues ready to test your Broadway brains, so let's get right to this week's game. This is Broadway Jeopardy! Looking at our categories for this week, we start off as always with last week's Final Jeopardy category, which is Gone But Not Forgotten. Looking at some characters mentioned in shows but who have already passed on and are not seen. That's followed by Shoes, Glorious Shoes. As you may have guessed, here we're looking at some footwear mentioned in musicals. After that, we have Flora, examining some plant life and flowers mentioned in musicals. And that's followed, of course, by Fauna. Here we have some animals featured on stage. And if you have Flora and Fauna, you've got to have Merryweather. I crack myself up. In this category, we're looking at some sunshine and good weather sung about in different show tunes. And we end with the Final Jeopardy category, so make sure and keep track of your scores if you wish, so you can wager some of your invisible earnings on that final clue. We begin, of course, with the $200 round, or the Overture round as we call it here, where the questions should be on the easier side to help you climb the ladder of knowledge before I grace the rungs with the harder questions later in the game. Let's kick things off in the Gone But Not Forgotten category, where your first $200 clue is: Anna thinks about her late husband Tom in the song Hello Young Lovers in this Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. What is The King and I? The real Anna Leon Owens married her husband Thomas on Christmas Day 1849. Her husband's name was actually Tom Leon Owens, but on the marriage certificate he combined his two last names into one, Leon Owens. Moving on to the Shoes, Glorious Shoes category brings us the next $200 clue, which is: this early rock and roll classic, written by Carl Perkins and made famous by Elvis Presley, opens the musical $1 Million Quartet with the lines, well, it's one for the money, two for the show. What is Blue Suede Shoes? As the clue stated, Blue Suede Shoes was written and first recorded by Carl Perkins and was a smash hit record. It was later recorded by Elvis, the version that's probably best remembered today. Carl Perkins and Elvis, along with Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis, were all a part of that legendary jam session about which $1 Million Quartet is based. The $200 clue in the Flora category is: in Disney's Beauty and the Beast is given an enchanted flower of this kind. What is a rose? We all know the prologue, right? A haggard old woman asks for sanctuary and is denied by the selfish young prince, and then she's like, just kidding, I'm hot, and now you're gonna be a hideous beast, and everyone you know will be turned into inanimate objects, which, I don't know, seems kinda harsh. The original animated film makes it sound like the prince was only 11 years old when he was changed into a beast, which is crazy. In the movie, they say he has to find love by his 21st birthday or the spell will be permanent, and later on, Lumiere says that they've been rusting for 10 years, ergo the prince was 11 when this all happened. But the Broadway version and the later live-action remake have changed these lines, so the prince is a little older when he's transformed, which, works a little bit better, I think. Looking at an animated animal come to life in the Fauna category with the $200 clue. This musical, based on the animated film of the same name, features a reindeer named Sven. What is Frozen? The producers of Frozen on Broadway initially resigned to cutting the character of Sven for the stage show, not quite being able to figure out how to actually do it on stage without it taking up too much time and space, until a single person system for operating the beautiful but technologically advanced puppet came to be. One actor is on all fours, essentially planking anytime they're on stage, with 5-inch sort of high heels and 11-inch hand stilts. There's a camera inside the reindeer's head to allow the actor to somewhat see where they're going, and there's also elaborate braces and joints to alleviate some of the strain on the performer. And amazingly, the whole costume, if you will, weighs only about 14 pounds. In finishing up the Overture round in the Merry Weather category with the $200 clue, in Oh What a Beautiful Mornin' from Oklahoma, Curly says that the corn is as high as this. What is an elephant's eye? Here's a fun anecdote for you. When they were planning the film version of Oklahoma, the production grew fields of corn to be used for the scenery, as well as the iconic opening of Curly riding through the cornfields. But when Rodgers and Hammerstein came to visit the set to look how things were progressing, they were discouraged to find that a drought had made it difficult to grow the crops, and the stalks were barely a few feet tall. Hammerstein is said to have remarked, "That's okay, I'll just change the lyric to 'The corn is as low as an elephant's toe.'" Luckily, the rains came and the corn grew to the appropriate elephant eye size. I hope you all stomped that first round. Let's move on to the only slightly harder $400 round now. Circling back to Gone But Not Forgotten, your first $400 clue is: Lydia Dietz goes on an otherworldly quest to find her dead mom in this film-based musical. What is Beetlejuice? The song Dead Mom from the musical, sung by the original Lydia in the musical Sophia Ann Caruso, became a popular listen among young theater fans when it was the first song officially released by Beetlejuice the musical, before the official cast recording was released a few months later. Tiptoeing our way to the Shoes Glorious Shoes category gives us the $400 clue. The Jester sings the sweet song Very Soft Shoes in this medieval set musical comedy recently seen on Broadway starring Sutton Foster. What is Once Upon a Mattress? Very Soft Shoes is one of two songs in Mattress that people have trouble with, the other one being the song Normandy. These songs, while certainly pleasant to listen to, don't really have anything to do with the plot of the show, and they don't move the story forward in any significant way. And while I personally have always had troubles with songs like that in shows, I do have a soft spot for Very Soft Shoes. The original Jester on Broadway was a performer named Matt Maddox, whom you might know from the film Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, where he played Caleb. For the recent revival starring Sutton Foster, Daniel Breaker played the Jester, though for the production's first outing as part of the City Center Encore series, it was Tony winner J. Harrison G. who told of his father's Very Soft Shoes.
That when he took his bow to the crowd and the crown, the crowd went crazy and the house came down when Daddy wore his very soft shoes.
Looking at a very recent musical now in the Flora category with the $400 clue. This musical featured Tony winner Idina Menzel climbing one of the world's tallest types of trees. What is Redwood? Redwood the musical opened on Broadway earlier this year, and not only did Idina Menzel star in the musical, but she actually spearheaded its creation along with Tina Landau, the book writer and director of the piece. Though the finished musical is an original one about a mother dealing with grief, Menzel was initially inspired by the story of Julia Butterfly Hill, an environmental activist who spent over 2 years living in a 1,000-year-old redwood tree in the late 1990s to prevent it from being cut down. The $400 clue in the fauna category is: in the Broadway version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Veruca Salt met a horrible demise thanks to giant versions of these critters who found her to be a bad nut. What are squirrels? Okay, so I'm sitting in the L'Enfant Theater watching the new Broadway musical version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it's fine, it's enjoyable, everything's going swimmingly. And then we get to the Veruca salt scene. So Veruca enters the nut room where she's not supposed to be, of course, and she's greeted by giant squirrels who start to perform this nightmarish dance they call the Nutcracker Suite in the show. And the squirrels start to injure Veruca, like hitting and kicking her, and the music gets more frantic, and the squirrel's eyes start to glow red, and then the giant demonic squirrels tear Veruca Salt limb from limb, and they throw the limbs and her body, her stump, all down the trash chutes. End of Veruca. It was something traumatizing. For the later national tour, they softened it up and she just goes down the trash chute without her limbs being taken apart, which, probably for the best. And your final $400 clue in the Merryweather category is the title of this classic show tune comes after the phrase, "Gray skies are gonna clear up." What is Put on a Happy Face? This song is, of course, from Bye Bye Birdie, and in the stage show, it's sung by Albert to a group of sad young girls at a train station who are bummed about Conrad joining the army. In the movie version, though, that's all changed, and instead Albert sings it to Rosie, who's rightfully angry with him, but then she splits into two people, and Albert dances with the hologram Rosie for a bit, and it turns into a duet. I don't know. The Bye Bye Birdie movie is really weird. You got the turtle hopped up on speed. It's a madhouse. Leaping right into the $600 round, back at Gone But Not Forgotten, the $600 clue there is... in Hello, Dolly, Dolly speaks several times to her late husband, who was named this. What is Ephraim? Not too much is revealed about Dolly's first husband, Ephraim, except that he was a philanthropic man, strongly believing that
money, pardon the expression, is like manure. It's not worth a thing unless it's spread around, encouraging young things to grow.
The $600 clue in the Shoes Glorious Shoes category is... according to the musical Kinky Boots, the sex is in this part of the shoe. What is the heel? In the musical, Charlie Price and his new friend Lola set out to make a woman's boot that can sustain the weight of a man. Lola and their gaggle of drag queen friends, known as the Angels, look over Charlie's initial design and tell him to ratchet up the height of the heel by at least 6 inches.
The sex is in the heel, even if you break it. The sex is in the feel, honey, you can't fake it.
Growing our $600 clue in the Flora category yields us a daily double. Remember, how it works here is answer part 1 of the clue, you get the $600, and answer the slightly harder part 2, and you double your earnings to $1,200. Alrighty, your $600 double clue is... on the 21st day of this month, Seymour Krelborn found and bought Audrey 2 in Little Shop of Horrors. For double points, this is how much he paid for the plant. What is September is the answer to part 1, and what is $1.95 is the answer for part 2. Now, if you're shouting at the screen right now that it was September 23rd, you fool, well, that is the date they give in the film version. But in the stage musical, it has always been the 21st day of September. Looking at a title critter in the fauna category with the $600 clue. This musical, with an animal in its title, features one in the show named Punxsutawney Phil. What is Groundhog Day? There were two sort of groundhogs in Groundhog Day the musical. There was a little one in a cage that served as the real groundhog, and then there was the one that was a costume, sort of a Groundhog Day mascot outfit. I know I've shown it before in the past, but there's me wearing the groundhog head. And shining a light on the Merryweather category gives us the $600 clue. When the titular Annie loudly sings the phrase, "The sun will come out tomorrow," she's singing it to this character. Who is Sandy? Yes, Annie is alone with Sandy the dog in the stage show, and she sings the song that has haunted theater fans everywhere. It's time now to crank up the difficulty a notch or two with the $800 round. But before we do, if you're enjoying this week's game, please, oh pretty please, hit that little like button for me. It just takes a second from you, but it really helps with getting these videos shown to more fine folks like yourselves, but also makes me feel like I'm a sexy heel. Wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, thank you all. I really, really do appreciate it. Okay, off to the $800 round. Back again at Gone But Not Forgotten, your $800 clue there is... this was the name of Roger's deceased girlfriend in Rent. Who is April? We only get a few mentions of April in Rent, but it's a tragic story that affects Roger deeply, both emotionally and physically. And while she is never seen, of course, in the stage version of the show, for the 2005 film adaptation, we do see April in flashbacks during the song One Song Glory. Let's try on the $800 clue in the Shoes Glorious Shoes category, which is... in the musical drama The Visit, as the town people's morals begin to give way to greed, they all start wearing shoes of this color. What is Yellow? In the fascinating musical with a score by Kander and Ebb and a book by Terrence McNally, one of the wealthiest women in the world returns to the impoverished town she came from and makes the town a deal. She'll bankroll the entire town, easing everyone's money woes instantly if they agree to murder Anton, a member of the town who scorned the woman long ago. As the town grapples with the thought of murder, their morals, or lack thereof, become more apparent as one by one the townspeople buy extravagant things, all on credit, personified by the bright yellow shoes everyone seems to be sporting now. The $800 clue in the Flora category is... Edward Bloom proposes in a sea of yellow daffodils in this film-based musical from 2013. What is Big Fish? Based on the 2003 film directed by Tim Burton, as well as the novel Big Fish, written by Daniel Wallace in 1998. The song Daffodils closes Act 1 of the musical and was a beautiful bit of theatricality as hundreds of daffodils bloomed on stage every night. The wall of flowers even became the show's key art for Broadway. I do have one of the actual daffodils they used in the show. They did sell some at the merch booth. I have one of those somewhere. But this is one of the actual daffodil blooms from the set itself. Let's get mythical with the fauna category and the $800 clue. In the screen and stage musical Dr. Dolittle, the doctor encounters a rare two-headed animal called this. What is a push me pull you is the right response. In the original movie musical starring Rex Harrison with a score by Leslie Bricusse, which was adapted for the stage in London in 1998, the push me pull you was simply a two-headed llama which Dolittle can speak to because the animal uses a dialect close to that of a camel, the doctor says. But in the original novel that serves as the basis for the screen and stage musical, the Push Me Pull You is far more exotic. The two-headed animal, said to be one of the rarest animals on Earth, is actually descended from African gazelle as well as the last of the unicorns. He also has the ability to speak in the book. The Push Me Pull You always eats with one mouth and talks with the other as to never appear rude. Over in the Merryweather category, your last $800 clue is... In Pippin, this character sings the crafty "Spread a Little Sunshine." Who is Fastrada? Fastrada is Pippin's stepmother, whose world revolves around her own son, Louis, whom she's desperate to have take over the throne. The original Fastrada on Broadway was Leland Palmer, whom you might know from the film All That Jazz, where she played Audrey, Joe's ex-wife modeled after Gwen Verdon. For the Canadian production from 1981 that was filmed for television, it was Chita Rivera spreading a little sunshine. And it was Broadway baby Charlotte Dembois who took on the role for the 2013 Broadway revival.
And if we all could spread a little sunshine, all could lend a helping hand, we all would be a little closer to the promised land.
We've reached that point, my friends. The big show, the main event. It's the $1,000 round. Play me that dramatic music. Best of luck, players. Remembering the Gone But Not Forgotten category one last time with the $1,000 clue. In The Music Man, this character left the library building to the people of River City, but left all the books to Marion the librarian. Who is Miser Madison? Old Miser Madison, whose first name is never officially mentioned, was the town benefactor of River City, not only providing them with the town library, but also the Madison Hospital, the Madison Picnic Park, and the Madison Gymnasium. In fact, the statue that Harold Hill sings the iconic Trouble in front of is one of Mr. Madison himself. Though, like the persnickety townsfolk of River City, many fans of The Music Man have suspected old Miser Madison and Marion Peru of a more explicit relationship. In actuality, Uncle Matty, as Marion calls him, was a dear friend of her late father's and left her all the library books to secure her a job for life and a steady income for her family. Going back to the early golden age with the Shoes Glorious Shoes category and the $1,000 clue. This musical about the Longstreet family features the Bathing Beauty Ballet and the song "Papa Won't You Dance With Me." What is High Button Shoes? High Button Shoes opened on Broadway in 1947 with a score by Julie Stein and Sammy Cahn, both of whom were making their Broadway debuts with the show. The musical is based on the autobiographical book The Sisters Like Them Handsome by Stephen Longstreet, who also wrote the book for the musical, though it was later mostly rewritten by the musical's director, George Abbott. The show followed the Longstreet family as they dealt with two con men. It starred Nanette Fabray as Sarah, the matriarch of the family, and Phil Silvers as Henry Floy, the lead con man. The highlight of the show was a 10-minute dance sequence called the Bathing Beauty Ballet, staged by Jerome Robbins, that was said to be a Mack Sennett-style Keystone comedy come to life. The $1,000 clue in the Flora category is... This 1954 musical by Truman Capote and Harold Arlen starred Pearl Bailey as Madame Fleur, who runs a brothel where all the ladies bear floral-themed names. What is House of Flowers is the right response. Based on a short story of the same name by Truman Capote, the musical is set in Haiti and was apparently the first Broadway show to have a steel drum in its orchestra. Besides Pearl Bailey in the lead, the musical also starred Juanita Hall, who won the Tony for playing Bloody Mary in the original South Pacific, future Tony winner Diane Carroll making her Broadway debut, and in the ensemble, also making their Broadway debut, was a young dancer named Alvin Ailey. Looking at a Broadway flop in the Fauna category with the $1,000 clue. In 1965, a very short-lived show called The Yearling opened, based on the novel of the same name, about a young boy who adopts one of these types of animals. What is a deer? As the clue stated, the musical was based on the 1938 novel The Yearling by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings and was about a boy in the backwoods of Florida who adopts a motherless fawn. A real baby deer was used in the stage musical, which must have made the Old Yeller type plot even harder to watch, if you get my drift. Though many admired the score, including Stephen Sondheim and Barbra Streisand, who recorded 4 of the show's songs, the musical's closing notice went up before the show even opened, and it lasted only 3 official performances. And the curtain call clue in the Merriweather category for $1,000 is... This Irving Berlin song, featured in the 1926 musical Betsy, became a breakout hit and was recorded by Ella Fitzgerald and Willie Nelson, among others. What is Blue Skies? That was a tough one. Bringing it all the way back to Betsy in 1926. None of you saw that coming. Betsy was a musical with a score by Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart early in their songwriting career. The star of the show was a performer named Belle Baker, and Betsy was her big break. She felt that the score didn't give her enough to send her into stardom, so she tapped her good buddy Irving Berlin to write her a new song, which she then took to the producer of Betsy, none other than Florenz Ziegfeld, who put it in immediately. It wasn't until opening night, when Belle sang Blue Skies on stage, that Rodgers and Hart found out about the song that was added to their score. And not only did it greatly embarrass the two men, but the song stopped the show cold that night, with the audience demanding an insane 28 encores of the song. And now we've reached the final Jeopardy round, everyone! Time to tally up your scores and decide how much you want to wager in the category 50 years ago. Yes, for our 50th episode, we're looking at 50 years ago on Broadway, the year 1975. Okay, has everyone made their wagers? Ray? Deborah? Henrik? Okay, here is your final clue. The musical Good Time Charlie starred Joel Grey as Charles, the Prince of France, and Anne Reinking as this famous martyr. Who is Joan of Arc? The musical is a lighthearted take on the real-life figures of Charles, the Prince of France, who's preoccupied with frivolity and women, especially Joan of Arc, hearing voices phase. With her guidance and inspiration, the Good Time Charlie evolves into the noble Charles VII, King of France. The musical was initially titled Charlie and Joan, and it was hoped to star Al Pacino and Barbara Harris as the leads. When Joel Grey became interested in the project, the musical was heavily changed to suit his persona and abilities. The producers wanted Fosse protege and dancing star Anne Reinking for the role of Joan of Arc, so much so that they delayed the production while she recovered from a previous injury. The delay caused scheduling issues for Joel Grey early into the run of the musical, and unable to find a suitable star to replace him, despite the musical's good reviews, the producers closed the show after only 3 months. And that's this week's game! How did you all make out this week? Was your score as high as an elephant's eye, or as low as an elephant's toe? Be sure to let me know in the comments. I absolutely love hearing from you guys and seeing your scores. Next week will be the 50th episode of Broadway Jeopardy, and I cannot believe it. I'll have a few special guests reading some clues, some that have appeared in past episodes, and some new but familiar faces. All very exciting, so help me spread the word by sharing this video far and wide. Of course, a massive thanks to the biggest rock stars on the planet, my patrons over on Patreon. You guys literally keep the lights on. I cannot thank you all enough. If you want to help support the channel, you can check out my Patreon using the link in the video description, where there's also a link to my merch shop. If you want to connect with me, talk shop, and hear me rant about various things outside of YouTube, you can find me over on Blue Sky. I will be back next week with episode 50, but until then, I'm Mark Benani. This is Broadway by Ghostlight. Thanks for playing.
That corn isn't as high as an elephant's eye.
Oh, you wanted the corn to be high.